Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us in the conversation as we talk about firearms policy, politics, culture, movies, just funny stuff, you name it. Please remember to like and share this video feed so that your friends can join in the conversation. Also, please remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to do it, or follow us on Facebook so that you can get the alerts and know that we're, when we're live, so that you can participate in the conversation as it is happening. Also, as I remind you every day, please remember to go to fpcgear.com. Very cool t-shirts, and know that every dollar that you spend there goes right back into the fight, so you can fight for the Second Amendment and look good while doing it. That's at fpcgear.com. Wow, got into that in less than a minute. Not bad, I would say. Anyway, so let's talk about today's topic. Now, we all know that there are those. We all hear those people on the anti-gun movement who all say that they believe in the Second Amendment and that they believe in the constitutional right to keep and bear arms. But they also believe that we just want to see some quote unquote common sense regulations. Well, the leader of the Moms Demand Action, Mrs. Shannon Watts, decided that she has finally just come out and admitted that gun control must be unconstitutional. Now, I know many of you out there saying, well, she did that? Really? Well, I don't think she intended to do it, but that is in fact what she wound up doing. She sent out a tweet. This had to do with the announcement by the Trump White House that Brett Kavanaugh was going to be the his nominee to replace Justice Kennedy on the United States Supreme Court. And she wanted to express her opinion, her concerns over his positions on the Second Amendment. And she noted in that, she noted in her thing a number of issues in particular that she had with his particular perspective on the Second Amendment. Now, in this tweet, she noted that she said, Justice Kavanaugh has applied an extreme and dangerous interpretation of the Second Amendment when determining whether a law is constitutional, one that does not take into account the law's impact on public safety. Now, maybe it's just me, but first of all, I always thought that the thing that you looked to when determining whether or not something was constitutional was, what would that be? The Constitution. In other words, if you wanted to determine whether or not something was in fact constitutional, then you ought to look and see what does the Constitution actually say about it. Now, there are some issues where you do have to, where there is a degree of, interpretation that is necessary, a large degree of interpretation. Say, for example, in the issue of abortion. Abortion isn't mentioned anywhere in the Constitution. Yet somehow the courts have decided they do rigmarole and this, that, and the other, that it is a constitutional right. Now, I'm not debating abortion. I'm not debating whether abortion should be legal or anything like that. My only question is if I wanted to determine whether or not abortion is constitutional, I would look to the Constitution. Once again, there's a lot of interpretation and reading that one would have to go to in order to determine that abortion is, in fact, a constitutional right. Same thing with marriage. Whether we're talking about traditional marriage or same-sex marriage or whatever we're talking about, right? Marriage equality is what they call it. Once again, there's a whole lot of interpretation that the left goes through to determine that something is a constitutional right that is not enumerated in the Constitution. I'm not here right now arguing whether or not these things should be legal. I'm not. That's a different debate for a different show, different audience. My point is that neither one of them are in the Constitution, yet a lot of these folks will push and they will claim that they are a constitutional right. Healthcare is not in the Constitution. And yet you have people claiming you have a right to health care. But the right to keep and bear arms. Now, I find this interesting because the right to keep and bear arms is, in fact, actually is in the Constitution. It's there in black and white. In fact, when you look at the amendments to the Constitution, it's the second one in line. So one has to ask the question, how much debate does there really need to be? Because what she's saying is he doesn't take public safety into account. Like gun control takes public safety into account. See, public safety is the infringement. Not public safety, but gun control is the infringement. Is the degree to which you can infringe on one's right to keep and bear arms in the name of purported public safety. So she says that the positions that he takes are extreme. Well, let's take a look at something that he wrote in a dissent. Now, this is actually, it wasn't to Heller, but this is what they call Heller 2 or whatever you want to call it. But this was to the to the D.C. Assault weapons ban. And here's something that he wrote in that particular dissent. He said, put in simple terms, the issue with respect to what the test to apply gun bans and regulations is this. Are gun bans and regulations to be analyzed based on the Second Amendment's text, history, and tradition? Or may judges recalibrate the scope of the Second Amendment right based on judicial assessment of whether the law advances a sufficiently compelling or important government interest to override the individual right? And if the latter is the proper test, strict scrutiny or intermediate scrutiny. They're talking about, how they determine or when they look at. It's a level of scrutiny when it comes to these to court decisions. And then he states, as I read Heller, and he's looking to Heller. The Supreme Court was not silent about the answers to those questions. Rather, the court set forth fairly precise guidance to govern those issues going forward. So, Mr. Kavanaugh here, I don't see anything that is extreme in what he is saying there. What he's pointing out in his particular opinion is simply this, that look, I recognize that there are two different things here. That one is, do we judge the Second Amendment based on the text as written, which is generally the job of the court? Or do we have a job to change the scope of the Second Amendment based on a quote-unquote compelling government interest, which is what the left would like to do, which is what gun grabbers would like to do. They want to reinterpret the Second Amendment to say that it doesn't exist, that you don't have a right to keep and bear arms. But they want to reinterpret it in a way that, they believe it's, once again, in the name of supposed, how shall we say, what was the word I used before? In the name of proposed public safety. That's their goal. Now what he goes on to point out here is some very, very interesting stuff, which I think is a very common sense question and point that he makes regarding the ban that these folks want to have on semi-automatic rifles. And the point made here is this. The majority opinion next contends that semi-automatic handguns are good enough to meet people's needs for self-defense and that they shouldn't need semi-automatic rifles. But that's a bit like saying books can be banned because people can always read newspapers. This is not a persuasive or legitimate way to analyze a law that directly infringes on an enumerated, let me say that again, enumerated, can I say it one more time, enumerated constitutional right. So in other words, and it's funny because I've seen this exact same argument brought up in court regarding several other issues regarding the handgun roster, the not unsafe handgun roster here in California, as it was being debated before the Ninth Circuit. But the point here, once again, that's being made is that they believe that people who know absolutely nothing about firearms, think that it is wholly appropriate for them to say, you have that, so that ought to be enough. Well, You have a Catholic church. Why do you need a Protestant church? I mean, why do you need a Episcopal church? Why do you need an AME church? Why do you need a Church of God? Right? You already have books. Why do you need newspapers? Right? Okay, look, you have Facebook. Why do you need websites? These are the sorts of things that those who want to grab our guns, those who want to take away our constitutional right, who want to infringe on our constitutional rights, don't understand, is that because it is an enumerated right, there ought to be a greater degree of there ought to be a higher standard before you decide you can limit that right. That is what infringement is. And so, Ms. Watts, as you note, your whole goal is you want to infringe on the rights because you believe there's a compelling government interest. So yes, you do want to infringe on that right. You want to do exactly what the Constitution says you cannot do. Thus, your gun control is therefore unconstitutional. I rest my case. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you guys will take a minute, by the way, before I tune out. Take a minute to join the Firearms Policy Coalition. You know, I talked to you about the T-shirts at the front end because that gives you a chance to, you can make a contribution and you're getting something physical back for you, getting something back for it. But in the end, look, all of this, the videos that we do, the letters that we write, the lobbying that we do in multiple states and in Washington D.C. The website, all of the research that we do, the lawsuits, all of these things cost money. And they only happen because of you, because of your commitment to the right to keep and bear arms. And, you know, I know you guys I know you guys probably get tired of us asking for money, but I tell you this because I need you to understand, look, we don't have a Michael Bloomberg coming in from out of nowhere to drop, tens of millions of dollars in our laps in order for us to be able to do this. We count on you. Just like you count on us to fight the fight that we fight, we count on you to be there with us, both by participating in the fire missions, but also and spreading the word, but also by helping us out financially. So anyway, that's going to be it, folks. Thank you so much. We very, 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 very much appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Remember, got to use them or you are going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.